How are you guys doing? Today is Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Gerrit Cole. The elite starting pitcher for the New York Yankees turns 31 today, and my intent with this profile is to bring light to his accomplishments, his achievements, and then just all the accolades that he's been able to stack up from the moment he first stepped into the league to where he is now as a $300 million man, probably with the most valuable job in baseball, being the ace for the New York Yankees of all franchises. So just to give a little bit of background, or just to go into his play style, I would say that he's more of a strikeout artist than anything else as a pitcher. I mean, his ERA is virtually alongside some of the greatest ever, but where he gets his money is where is the strikeout numbers. He's been able to count up just a bunch of strikeout feats ever since he's been able to master it. And even this year, he's leading the league, and at least that was up until he strained his calf yesterday, but it still seems as though when he gets back, Gerrit Cole will most definitely finish among the best in strikeouts this season. And not to mention just his impact, he does win games, and as of right now, he looks worth the money that Yankees gave him at the moment. So just looking back, just giving a little bit of background, he would originally come out of Newport Beach. He went to Orange Lutheran High School. I know I don't usually mention the high school, but since I'm from LA and I actually know that high school, I know that high school incredibly well. He eventually would go on to play baseball at UCLA before getting drafted to the Pittsburgh Pirates. He would officially get moved up in the 2013 season, his age 22 season. In his age 22 season for the Pittsburgh Pirates, he will go on to start, he would end up starting 19 of the games that he would play, all 19 of them. And in this season, in 2013, the Pittsburgh Pirates would end up going 94-68. They had the second best record in the National League Central, and this was also Andrew McCutchen's MVP season, just for a little bit of context. But of course, in his rookie season, following his 3-year stint at UCLA, he will go on to put up at double-digit wins in his rookie season. He would finish with a 10-7 record, with a 3.22 ERA in his rookie season. In the 117 innings he pitched, he allowed 109 hits. Less hits than innings pitched by about 8, and he would strike out 100 batters as well. And of course, while doing that, he would establish himself as a player that the Pirates that they could see themselves relying upon in the future. This would bring Gerrit Cole back to Pittsburgh for his second season there. In his age 23 season in 2014, he would start all 22 of the games that he would play in a season where the Pirates would go 88-74. They lost 6 more games in the previous season, but they would go right back to the playoffs. The previous year, after beating the Reds, they would lose in the NLDS to the Cardinals, which is the furthest in the playoffs where that Gerrit Cole got. But coming into this season, he would finish with an 11-5 record, holding a 3.65 ERA, a little higher than his first season. In the 138 innings he pitched, he allowed 127 hits in his sophomore season, striking out 138, which is exactly as many strikeouts as innings pitched. And you would start to see him put a lot of it together. Wasn't necessarily named an all-star that season, but finishing with an 11-5 record for a playoff team, especially in your age 23 season, will get you recognized. But looking at what happened to them after that, they would end up losing in the wild card to the Giants. And this is the season where the Giants would end up beating the Royals for their third championship in 5 years, just for context. Following that, this would be Gerrit Cole's career up until he was named an all-star in his third season in the league in 2015. In his age 24 season, he would go on to start 32 games for a Pittsburgh Pirates team that would finish with a 98-64 record. That would be the best record that they had since he had been there. They finished with the second best record in the Central, and they would go on to make the playoffs for the third year in a row in Gerrit Cole's third year there. He would finish with a 19-8 record. That's the best record that he would put up in the National League. He finished with a 2.6 ERA, which is the lowest ERA he'd ever had in the first time, or the lowest ERA up until that point, and that'd be the first time his ERA would be under 3. In the 208 innings that he pitched, which is the second most innings he's pitched in a season to date, he would allow 183 hits, which is 25 less hits than innings pitched. He would strike out 202 batters, which is 6 less strikeouts than innings pitched as well. He would go on to be named an All-Star for the very first time in his career. He would finish fourth in a National League Cy Young race that would eventually end up with Jake Arrieta from the Chicago Cubs taking it home. But regardless, Gerrit Cole being named an All-Star in his third season, of course, he had a sense that he was very capable of performing at this level when he's most definitely on. But once they went into the playoffs, they would end up losing in the wild card to the Cubs. In 2015, this is the year where the Cubs would end up losing down the line, and then the Royals would end up winning the 2015 World Series, just to let you know what happened then. After that, he has not made the playoffs with the Pittsburgh Pirates since. In his fourth season in Pittsburgh, in his age 25 season, he would start all 21 of the games he would play for a Pirates team that would finish with a 78-83 record. They had won 20 less games than they had the year before. And then in the season, Gerrit Cole would go on to finish with a 7-10 record. This would be the first time in his career he has not finished with a winning record. And so far, up until this day, that is the only time he's ever had a losing record in a complete season. It's the only time, except for the shortened season in which he hasn't won 10 games in a season. He would finish with a 3.88 ERA. He would throw his first complete game of his career, though, in the 116 innings he pitched, which is the least amount of innings he's pitched in a season up until then, because in 2016 he was dealing with a little bit of a right tricep injury, and he would eventually go on to finish the season. Looking back into that season itself, in the 116 innings he pitched, he would allow 131 hits. This would be the first time in his MLB career he would allow more hits than pitch innings, and he would also strike out 98 batters. So, of course, this is a season where he wasn't necessarily on it, and after the Pirates didn't make the playoffs, Gerrit Cole will come back in 2017 for what would be his last year with the Pittsburgh Pirates. In his fifth season with the club, or with the organization, he would start all 33 of the games that he would play for a Pittsburgh Pirates team that would finish 75-87. He would go on to lead the National League in starts. This would be the only time that he would start 33 games in the National League. He would finish with a 12-12 record, holding a 4.26 ERA. That is the highest ERA Gerrit Cole has ever posted in a season to date. He would throw 203 innings, the second time he'd throw for over 200 innings in his 5-year tenure with the Pirates. He would allow 199 hits. This would be the fourth time in his 5-year with the Pirates he allowed less hits than innings pitched. He would strike out 196, and he would go on to, and I guess following that season where the Pirates would go on to, they won 3 less games than the previous season, Gerrit Cole would go on to find himself getting traded to the Houston Astros for a bunch of pitchers, one of them being Joe Musgrove. And once he started with the Houston Astros, his 2-year tenure there would actually be a very, very solid, probably one of the best 2-year stretches in pitching. In his 2018 season, his age 27 season, he would go on to start all 32 of the games that he would play for a Houston Astros team that would finish with a 103-59 record. That is the most wins that franchise at that point had ever put up in their franchise's history. This would be the season where Dallas Keuchel won the Gold Glove and Altuve won the Silver Slugger. But in this season itself, Gerrit Cole will go on to finish with a 15-5 record. That is the highest win-loss percentage that he'd ever have in his career up until that date. He finished with a 2.88 ERA, which is the second time in his first 6 years in the league he had an ERA below 3. He would go on to throw a complete game shutout for the very first time in his career. He would throw for 200 innings for the second straight year and for the third time in a 4-year stretch. In those 200 innings, he would allow 143 hits, which is 57 less hits than innings pitched, and he would strike out 276 batters, which is 76 more strikeouts than innings pitched. This would be the first time in his career he struck out more batters than pitched innings. He would go on to be named an All-Star in the American League in his very first year pitching in the American League. And then he would go on to finish 5th in American League Cy Young voting. He was second on his own team behind Justin Verlander, but this year Blake Snell will go on to win the American League Cy Young while he was playing on the Tampa Bay Rays. And once they made it into the playoffs, the Houston Astros would end up sweeping the Cleveland Indians in the ALDS, and then they would end up losing in the ALCS to the Red Sox, and this is the season where the Red Sox would beat the Dodgers in the World Series, because Gerrit Cole came to the Astros the year after they won the World Series. Following that season, he would come back for his age 28 season in 2019, which would more than likely go down as his best pitching season to date, if we're not counting, if this season is possibly the exception. In 2019, Gerrit Cole would start all 33 of the games that he would play for a Houston Astros team that would finish with a 107-55 record. That is the best record the Houston Astros have ever posted in a regular season to date. In this season, Gerrit Cole would finish with a 20-5 record on the season. That's the only time in his career he's finished with 20 wins in a season. This would be his best win-loss percentage, as he won 80% of the games that he would get a decision in. He would finish with a 2.50 ERA, which to date is the lowest ERA he's ever had. This would be the third time in his first 7 years in the league he'd put up an ERA below 3, and the second time in his 2-year stint with the Astros that he'd been able to do so. Like I said, even to date, this is the lowest ERA he's ever had. In the 212 innings he's pitched, which is the most innings he's ever pitched in a season, by the way, he would allow 142 hits, which would be 70 less hits than innings pitched. He would strike out 326 batters, which would be 114 more strikeouts than innings pitched in a full season, which, still virtually incredible. That's the first time he's ever led the American League and the entire league in strikeouts. He will go on to lead the league in strikeouts per 9 batters or per 9 innings again. He would average 13.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. 2019, he would also go on to put up, I think, at least 9 starts in which he had at least 10 strikeouts. And Gerrit Cole will go on to have a virtuoso performance in 2019. He would go on to be named an All-Star for the second year in a row and for the third time in a 5-year stint. He would go on to be named, he was the Cy Young runner-up in 2019, as the Cy Young winner would be his own teammate Justin Verlander. As Cole finished with a 20-5 record, Verlander finished with a 21-6 record and also finished with 300 strikeouts. So, of course, just to give a sense of how great the Astros 1-2 punch was. And following that season, the Astros would end up beating the Rays in the DS in 5. They beat the Yankees in the ALCS in 6. They would end up losing in the World Series to the Washington Nationals in 7. So that's exactly how that season ended. And following the 2019 season, Gerrit Cole would end up signing a 9-year, $324 million contract with the New York Yankees. When he signed it, it was the largest contract signed by a pitcher at the time, topping Steven Strasburg's contract. And in this season, in Gerrit Cole's very first season with the New York Yankees, the only reason he would miss out on being an All-Star was because the MLB season got cut from 162 games to 60 due to the coronavirus quarantine just stopping sports for months at a time, but they were still able to salvage what they could of the season. And by extending the playoffs in the MLB from 4 teams for each league to 8, they decided to do that because the season was shrinking, and because of that, they weren't able to name All-Stars, but regardless. In his very first season with the New York Yankees in 2029 in the shortened season, he would start all 12 of the games that he would play for a New York Yankees team that would finish with a 33-27 record. They finished with the second best record in the American League East, and they went on to clinch the extended playoffs. In the regular season itself, Gerrit Cole would finish with a 7-3 record as he finished with a 2.84 ERA. This would be yet another winning season for Gerrit Cole, and this would be the third season in a row in which he posted an ERA below 3. This would be the third time he's done so in what would be this would be the fourth time he's done so in a 6-year stretch, just to get a sense of how amazing Gerrit Cole was pitching this season. And at the conclusion of the year, he would go on to make the very first All MLB first team, as he did go on to lead the American League in ERA. He would also go on to finish with 2 complete games, one of them being a shutout. In the 73 innings he pitched, in 2020, he would go on to be named to the All MLB second team. He made the first team back in 2019 when he finishes the second team, or as he finished second, or the Cy Young runner-up to his teammate. In 2020, he was on the 2020 second team. In the 73 innings he pitched, like I said, he allowed 53 hits, 20 less hits than innings pitched. He would strike out 21 more batters than he had thrown innings. So, of course, this would be yet another season. This would be the third season in a row in which he struck out more batters than threw innings and allowed less hits than innings pitched. And once the season was over, he would finish in the top 5 in Cy Young for the third year in a row. This year, the American League Cy Young went to Shane Bieber, who ended up taking the Triple Crown while pitching an amazing season for Cleveland. And then following this season, Gerrit Cole would lead the Yankees into the playoffs, where they would beat the Cleveland Indians in the American League Wild Card round before losing in the ALDS to the Tampa Bay Rays, who eventually went on to the World Series to lose to the LA Dodgers. Following that season, this would lead us into this current season where we are watching Gerrit Cole put up an amazing season with the New York Yankees. He's already been named an All-Star for what would be the 4th time in his MLB career. This will be the 3rd time he's been named in a 4-year stretch, and the only year in which he wasn't named was when the world went into quarantine. So far this season, leading up until yesterday's game, where he actually pulled his calf or his hamstring, I don't remember, but please don't quote me on that one, in 2021, in his 4th All-Star season up to date. He has started 26 games so far for a New York Yankees team that is holding a 78-60 record, the second best record in the American League East win-wise. They've lost their last 4 games, just to give a sense of where they are. They've lost 8 of their last 10 following what was an amazing winning streak after they got their free agency signings. But this season so far, if we're looking specifically at what Gerrit Cole is doing, he has a 14-7 record. He's leading the American League in wins at the moment. He is holding a 2.78 ERA alongside that. If he continues out, he's on pace to have his 4th straight season in which he's thrown an ERA below 3, which is incredibly difficult to do as a pitcher. I mean, I imagine you know so, but I don't have to say how incredibly tough it is. For the 2nd year in a row, he's had 2 complete game shutouts at least. He's thrown a shutout this season already. In the 158 innings he's thrown so far, he's allowed 123 hits. That's 35 less hits than innings pitched this season. And he would go, and as of right now, he has 217 strikeouts on the year. And looking at where he is, he's at 59 more strikeouts than he's had innings pitched this season. And of course, he's on pace to very likely pick up his very first Cy Young of his career. And like I said, he was named an All-Star yet again, the very first time he's been named an All-Star for the New York Yankees. And considering this is year 2 of what could be a 9-year deal, this could be the beginning of what could be something very amazing for this New York Yankees team. And Gerrit Cole, as of today, is turning 21, and not 21, he's turning 31 today. And with this episode, I really hope I shine enough light on what he was able to do now, just to give a little bit of context for people that have never watched Gerrit Cole play. But that's really what I wanted to do here, just to give a little bit of reasoning, just to use his numbers to at least make the argument that he deserves to be recognized as an elite athlete within the sport. First, I want to thank the MLB Reference website, along with the MLB websites itself and the various Wikipedia pages I used for the facts and figures that I needed to put this episode together. I want to wish Gerrit Cole a happy 31st birthday, and I want to thank everybody for listening to all 20 minutes of this piece. If you ever get a chance to watch him, he's wearing number 45, and he's the ace for the New York Yankees. So that either means you hate him off the bat, or he's a very intriguing prospect, a very intriguing talent to watch, because out of all the pitchers in baseball, the Yankees chose to give this one $324 million, and it looks like their bet is most definitely paying off, especially this season. Thanks for listening to my piece. Once again, I'm James Sims. This is The Elite. I want to thank everyone for listening to all 20 minutes of this piece. Today is Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. Once all of today's exhibitions and mashups are done, I will come back tomorrow for another episode of that. And hopefully by this time next year, I'll have more to talk about as I give you another update on Gerrit Cole. But hopefully we'll see what he does between then and now. Thanks for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another elite individual profile after this. Peace out.